Hello everyone, thank you for joining us wherever you are. I'm Gulo from Jadi PNS, will be your host. Now we are with Eka Cahyaningrum. She is a primatologist and conservationist from Indonesia. Hello Eka, how are you?
Hi, Gulo. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Eka, thank you so much for joining us and we are really excited to have you here.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here, Gulo.
Mhm. Eka, in your undergraduate study, your major was animal science. Are you truly passionate about animal? If yes, since when and how?
Okay, thank you for the questions, Gulo. So actually, so I started to be interested in the animals, in the animal world, or mostly like uh, yeah, in the wildlife, starting from when I was in university. So in university, I joined a study club whose focused on studying amphibians, reptiles, such as like snakes, lizards, crocs, and also turtles.
Mhm.
And at that time, I got like interested in the animal world, and then since then, I started also to expand my interest to animal behavior, mammals, and also things related to biology and mostly their behavior, like animals' behavior. So that's when it all started.
Mhm. And then you started loving all of the animals, reptiles, and amphibians and stuff.
Yeah, at first it was a bit creepy for me, because frogs are slimy, and then snakes, the stereotype is very scary and then venomous and etc. But after a while I get used to them, and then I get to know that some of the species are very beautiful and some of them are not dangerous to us humans. And because of the activity in the study club, we used to visit like mountains and then rivers, like very pretty places where all those animals live. And then I get to see different places and different species. And then I start getting more interested in the animal world. But yeah,
Wow,
mostly amphibians.
amazing. And now you're an advocate for primates. How did you end up being interested in primates?
Yeah. So the story is like when I was in university, like I told myself that I would never study primates because everyone study primates because everyone study primates behavior, and I just said I'm not going to I'm not going to go there because everyone's already there. But then things happens before I graduate. I got a job as an assistant for a PhD student. So she's doing research in Sulawesi, and she needs assistant to work with her for 6 months. And then I think I will need like a work experience before I graduate. So I apply, and then I get a job. So I spent like 6 months in the forest of Sulawesi, assisting the PhD researcher. And at that time, I worked with the black-crested macaques in the Sulawesi. So at first, it was a tough work because I have to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning and then go to the forest at the latest at 5 a.m. And then I wait under the primate sleeping trees, so under the macaque sleeping trees until they wake up. And then after they wake up, I have to follow them the whole day when they are doing their activity, when they are doing when they're feeding, when they're foraging, when they're playing. I have to follow them the whole day. And then I get back when they are asleep. So the latest I go back to camp is like at 7 p.m. ish. After they finish their activity, sleep, and then I have to go to camp. And then probably I can finally sleep.
All
So
right.
that's the start.
So anyway, talking about sleeping, what time the primates usually sleep?
So it depends on the availability of the fruits. So when they are usually when the fruits are like plenty of fruits in the forest and they get to eat a lot and they are full, most of the time they get to sleep early around 5 to 6 p.m. But when the fruits are scarce and probably if there's another competitor, for example, another primates group, then they sometimes they have to like guard their territory or like fight a bit before they go to sleep. sometimes they go sleep later. So it depends on the situations also. But most of the time it's after the sundown.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
her 4 years experience in conservation and primate behavioral science, how do you find primates unique when, and when it's linked to the forest and forest ecosystem?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. So I work with several different species. So in Sulawesi, I work with macaques, and then after that, I work with Sumatran orangutans, and then after that, I work with um, gibbons in Borneo, and then now again with Kalimantan orangutan, and then Bornean gibbon also. So during those time I work with them, I think the most fascinating things is that how similar they are to us humans, like their social life is quite similar, and then they have their own personality. So when I work with them in the forest, I get to see that each of them have their own personality. So you wouldn't imagine that each of them uh so yeah, they are very unique on their own way. Like some of them are shy, some of them are like playful, some of them are like very aggressive. And the most interesting part is that in my job sometimes I have to be able to differentiate each individuals, because when you work with primates, most of the time like they have names. The primates that we studied have names, so we can differentiate them, so that I have to understand, oh, this is papaya, for example. That's a name of a monkey. So I have to understand, oh, upikabu is a bit shy and papaya is a bit playful. And then so that's the unique part, is that they are quite similar to us. They have their own personality. And then over time when I work with them, I get to understand that because of their huge number, some of the species, and then because of their big home range, they also play a big role on maintaining the forest ecosystem. So they eat plenty of fruits. That's why they help with spreading the seeds across the forest. And then they also help with the opening up the canopy. So when they move, uh, sometimes they take the branch, and then it opens up the forest so the sun can get into the forest floor, and then it helps with the seedlings. And then I think also some research also mentioned that
Mhm.
when primates eat the fruits and then they digest the seeds, and when they defecate in their feces, the seeds are sometimes like intact, and then the seeds that are in their feces, they germinate faster
Mhm.
than when you just plant the seed as it is. So basically the primates are the gardener of the forest, so they help with the forest regeneration.
Wow, wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. And Eka, in your, experience until this conversation, have you ever been in troubles with primates or other animals?
Yeah. Usually when it's wild primates, most of the time they will avoid us humans because it's unfamiliar and just new to them. So they most of the time they are afraid. But we have these things in the primate behavioral research. We called it habituations. So just to make them like used to our presence, so they don't run when we get close, or don't run when we are doing our observation. And then they will like they will not be disturbed, so they will like behave normally like when we are not there. So most of the time there is no problem between the humans and then the primates when it's wild primates. But when we are working with the reintroduced primates, when sometimes humans take the orangutans out of the forest and sell them and keep them in their house as a pet, and then we rescue them and then try to put them back in the forest. Sometimes they adopt a very weird behavior. Sometimes they get very aggressive to humans. Sometimes they are very afraid. Sometimes they attack. So those things can happen. So to me, maybe just being beaten once or twice,
By
and then being chased. Yeah,
beaten by primates.
beaten by an orangutans like kids. Yeah, and then sometimes being chased by a big male. So I was working in the peatland in the peat swamp forest in Central Kalimantan, observing like a big male, big orangutan male, and then he saw me, and I was alone, and then he like got like lower on the trees, and then he chased me, and just like I was alone, and I just ran in the forest because it was quite scary. Even though maybe he won't do anything to me, but it was quite intimidating to be chased by something that 100 kilos and can move faster and stronger than us.
Oh, wow. That's a very unique experience. Eka, in 2022, you're listed as Global Landscapes Forum Peatlands Restoration Steward. Congratulations, Eka.
Thank you.
And how was the story?
Mhm. Yeah, my background is in primate research, mostly behavior, but in 2019, so I was there working with the orangutans and then gibbons in the peat swamp forest in central Kalimantan. Um I was just doing usually what I did as a researcher, observing primates, and then sometimes helping with tree plantings, with the restorations of the degraded peatlands there, and then also observing other biodiversity. But then in 2019, if you remember, there is a forest fire in Central Kalimantan, in the peatland in Central Kalimantan. So at that time, I helped a bit with the firefighting, with what my organization did, and also with working with the local people and the local stakeholder to do firefighting there. So I joined the team for a few days, and then I get to speak with the local community. I get to speak with the firefighters, and then I get to talk about their experience that year in 2019, and then also about the situations that happens in the big fire in 2015. And then I think that's the first time that I thought that what can I do more as people who have this background in conservations? Can I contribute more, even though I'm not a local, even though I'm not from there, even though I'm just like someone from Java, but I really want to just contribute more basically.
Mhm.
So at the time, the story is I just want to do more and just learn more about restorations and learn more about this kind of situations. And then I quit my job, and then volunteering in organizations who work with restorations with mangrove. So I was there for a year, and then learning about mangrove restorations. And then in 2020, I have a have a talk with some of my friends who still in the Central Kalimantan, and then we decide that let's do something more, and let's build an organizations who will focus on the livelihood of the people who live around the peatland, and then also do something for the degraded peatland. So we built Himba Raya Indonesia, or HIRAI, an NGO that was made by like the three of us. Like, and then in 2021 we applied for the grant for restoration stewards, and then we got the support from the restoration stewards and GLF for the project in 2022. So that's how we get the support and how the project started before we apply for the GLF and restoration stewards. Then afterward, for the whole year in 2022, our project was supported by GLF and the restoration stewards.
Wow, that's awesome. And then what is peatlands from your own perspective?
Mhm. So I think peatland is a very unique and valuable ecosystem. Yeah, all ecosystem are valuable, but I think peatland is one of the unique one, because the structure of the land is also different. And then because my background is in biodiversity, so obviously I will say it from the biodiversity perspective. So peatland is known for their biodiversity, and it can provide a habitat for wide ranges of plants and animal species. And because of the unique situations with the acidic water, with the different kind of not soil, different kind of soil, not like the normal mineral soil. So sometimes the animals who lives in the peat swamp forest or even in the peat water is endemic species or very different, have a very different species structure than other forests. So sometimes they call peatland as a biodiversity hotspot because of their rich and unique flora and fauna. So that's I think my perspective on peatland. Other than that, peatland is a very what's it like very useful ecosystem that can also help the surrounding communities to help with the hydrological functions. Like take absorb the water so the area won't be flooded, and then when it's dry season also release the water like little by little, so there will be no drought for the surrounding communities. So it's a very unique and useful ecosystem.
And are there any environmental issues of peatlands in your area in Borneo or Kalimantan and in Indonesia in general?
Yeah, so I think the general issues is about the illegal logging before. So nowadays, I think the things that happens now is just basically uh, the effect of what happens in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in the past is the illegal logging happens. So it caused a series of catastrophic, I think, because of the illegal logging. So, for example, when the illegal logging happens, like people who wants to take the log have to go deeper into the forest to get the bigger logs for themselves. And to get into the forest, it's very difficult in the peatland, in the peat swamp forest to walk inside. So they have to find other ways to go inside the forest. That's why they build canals to go inside the forest with a small boat. And because of the structure of the peat, which is like a sponge, so they build the canal by using a chainsaw and cut through the peatland and then just take out the peat, so then the water so then it can form a canal so that they can like take their boat inside the forest. And then because of those activity, because of those canals, the waters from the inside of the forest uh, go to the big river, and it drains the water that are supposed to be inside the forest. And then it also happens to cause peat subsidence, where the peat matters is also carried by the water in the canal to the main river. So it caused the peat layer to be thinner than it's supposed to originally. And then because of the waters gone from inside the forest, and then the peat dried, it caused the peat to be vulnerable to fire, because it's basically become a pile of dried leaf that is very vulnerable to fire. That's why it's now very easily like caught fire and then spread everywhere once the fire starts. So it's a it's an effect from the uh, things that happens in the past. Now the pit are quite vulnerable in some areas.
Wow, thank you for telling. And then after what happens in the past, and most of the community will experience like the effects of the illegal logging and also climate change and stuff. And do you kind of like working to advocate and raise awareness about it to the community?
Yeah. So when we run our project, we talk to the community. Some of them are aware about the situations. Some of them are like, yeah, we have to take care of the pit because things are different. They are the first who experience the the difference that are caused by the peat degradations. Because in the past there is no floods, but now we experience floods. Like in the past there's no drought, and then now we experience drought. So they are first the first people who experience the impact of those situations. So what we did is basically we talk more to the university students, to raise the awareness, because apparently when we do our activity with the students, some of the students say that they've, even though they grow there, they grow up in around the location, around the ecosystem, they've never experienced to go to the degraded peatland or the intact peatland. So the activity with us is their first time, experiencing doing restorations activities or experiencing, peat for the first time. So I think it's also, other than the community, uh, it's also good to raise the awareness with the local youth and involve them in the restorations activity or in the awareness activity. But most of the related to the locals, mostly other than raising awareness, we hope that we can also help with their livelihood by involving them in our planting activity, and then purchasing some of the seedlings from them. So then they get economical benefit, other than just talking about how important the peatland is. We try to prove it to them, like this ecosystem can also give benefits in a different way.
Oh, that's amazing job that you and your team are doing, Eka.
Thank you.
And then how does it feel to be a young conservationist working in the wildlife conservation?
Yeah, I think one word, I think, to express the whole experience as a young conservationist is that it's a privilege. I think it's a huge privilege, because working in this working in these sectors, I get to experience things that probably other people can't. For example, that I get to visit places who's probably not like prohibited for people who's not working in the sectors. For example, I work with orangutans, and if you when you're not working with orangutans, you cannot like see them like close up, or like um, your movement are limited, or like your time are limited. But I get to see them for the whole year. I get to see them for several years, like experiencing their lives. When they give birth for the first time, when the kids are independent. So those kind of experience is something that invaluable, something that cannot be bought with money. So I thought that my work now, like my job, what I'm doing, is some kind of privilege also. And yeah, I get to see places that are far away, and then probably different conservation project. I get to talk with a lot of different community, with also a lot of different people who have experience outside of my work. For example, maybe people who's doing different things in different sites, or like working with different community with different experience. So yeah, I get a lot of stories also, and I can learn a lot from what happens in the world or in Indonesia, especially.
Wow. Eka, could you please tell us one most interesting or unforgettable moment working with the primate?
With the primates. Oh, that's a lot.
Oh, well, you
Let me
can mention
think.
the only one.
Okay, let me think about it for a bit. Unforgettable experience. That's a lot. Um, oh God, I don't have it on top of my mind. Let me think.
Well, you mentioned about, the primates giving birth, for example.
Ah, so with primates giving birth, it's um it's a weird situation actually, because you sometimes you cannot see it, like even though you are in the forest for a long time. Most of the time you don't see it, because orangutans build nests, so they go to their nest, and sometimes we know that they are pregnant, but one day they just like with their kids. But but I think one of the interesting experience that I experience is the how they interact with each other, because they are very territorial. Some primates are very territorial, so they don't like it when other when other groups or when other individuals like approach them.
Mhm.
So I think one of the interesting things is I was working with the gibbons in the Central Kalimantan, and one day we just lost them. We followed them for like half a day, and then suddenly they just ran and they just like gone. And then we like search for them, and then suddenly there's like scream in the forest. There's this animal scream, and we know that, oh, it's the gibbon scream. Like what happened? Maybe they were caught by clouded leopards, they were eaten or something. And then I saw that the juvenile of the group, they caught a bat, and then they caught a bat, and then they just fight with the bat. So the gibbons like caught the bat and then fight with the bat and then tore the bat wings apart and just like swing it, just like being very aggressive. And I was like, what happened? I've never seen them being this aggressive, but they keep attacking the bat. The adult females keep screaming, the adult male keeps screaming, but then the juvenile was just like attacking the bat, attacking the bat. And then I think it happens for like 15 minutes, so it's quite long. But then the scream, I can still remember it in my head about the gibbon screaming. But then the bat died because of the violence act.
Wow, wow, wow. And how about orangutan fighting with orangutans?
Mm. So yeah, I experienced that also, but this is not the wild orangutan. So when I was working in Sumatra, this is not the wild orangutans because I've never seen the wild orangutans having this behavior, but this is a reintroduced orangutans. So obviously they are a bit different because they've experienced being kept as a pet, so their behavior is a bit different. So these two dominant males are in the territory of the camp where we are trying to reintroduce them to the forest. But then this older male and this younger male with the weight of like 100 kilos or more, they're very big with a big cheek. They are like fighting with each other, but the fighting is quite violent because they have fangs, so they beat each other. And this one, the younger male have to be be carried out from the forest and then get treatment from the vet because they got wounded very badly, like bleeding on their back because of the older orangutans like beat them and then attack them. So they just have to like, what is it like, yeah, they just have to surrender, and they just like fell to the ground, and then the vet have to rescue them and take them and give them treatment. So that's the that's a violent act. But then sometimes the simple moments is also some things that are very, what is it, unforgettable. So maybe you can search later with the gibbon song. So usually we in the forest in Kalimantan, when I did study gibbons, wake up early always. When studying primates, always wake up early, and then at 5 we already under the sleeping trees and then waiting for the gibbons to wake up. And at that time the gibbons will sing. So the gibbon sing, it was started by the male singing first, and then followed by the female, and then they will do a duet. And then sometimes the offspring will follow with the singing, and then the other group will sing. So sometimes we can hear like 5 to 4 groups,
Wow,
5 to 6 groups singing in the forest, like in the dark,
wow,
early morning with the birds singing and then the gibbon
wow,
singing, and it's just divine, I think.
wow, 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 wow. That's totally amazing and makes me want to listen to it
Yeah,
directly. Wow.
I'll
Okay.
give you the website.
Yeah. Wow, wow, wow. That's amazing. And last but not least, what would be your message for youth about peatlands and
Mhm,
wildlife conservation?
mhm. So I think, well, nowadays I think it's getting better. Before, sometimes I saw that the youth doesn't have the space to speak or to express their interest with the wildlife conservations, or even like, you know, environmental activism in general. But I think what I always say most of the time is that you don't have to have the right degree, you don't have to have the, you know, the right the related background to care about the environment. I think you can just do care about the environment, do something at within your capacity, within our capacity. So for example, sometimes we think that, oh, I have to get a degree in biology or in conservation or in forestry to be able to do something, to be able to make an impact or make a difference. But I think you don't have to have all that. You just have to care. You just need the passions to protect the environments, and then you can help in your own way. For example, if you are a graphic designer, maybe some of us will think, oh, it's far-fetched, but then you can always help with the organizations who work with the environment to design their campaign. You can always make your own design to voice your opinions on environmental protections or on wildlife conservation. So you don't have to do something big to make an impact, because I think a small impact is still an impact, and you can just do your own in your own capacity. I think
Inspiring,
that's it.
inspiring me. Thank you. This is such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Eka, for sharing your inspiring story.
Of course, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to share my story. Thank you for listening.
Mhm. And yes, thank you, Eka, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's collaborate to make this world into a better place. I'm Gulo from JDPNS. Thank you, and see you again.